So, what really makes a great leader? Is it all about force, or is it something more? Well, in ancient Sri Lanka, the answer was crystal clear. We're going to dive into this really powerful philosophy where leadership wasn't something you just took, it was something you earned. And we'll see it through the eyes of two incredible kings who actually lived by this code.
I mean, it's a question for the ages, right? How should you wield power? Is it just about being the strongest or the smartest strategist, or is there something deeper to it? The ancient chronicles from Sri Lanka have this fascinating take on it. They show how a ruler's success was directly, and I mean directly, tied to their character, to their compassion.
Okay, so this whole philosophy, it really boils down to one single, powerful idea: merit, or in the original Pali, punya. The thinking was that nothing just happens by accident. Not your wealth, not the respect you get, and certainly not the power to rule a whole kingdom. Nope, it's all a direct result of the good things you've done. So, becoming a king, that was seen as the ultimate payoff for a lifetime of accumulating some serious punya.
But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. Gaining all that power was just step one. Once you're on the throne, you've got this huge choice to make. Do you use your power to generate even more merit, more punya, by doing good for your people, or do you just squander it all? Do you waste that cosmic good fortune on selfish stuff, creating sin or papa, that ultimately leads to your own downfall and even worse, your kingdom's suffering? It's a real fork in the road.
All right, so to really see how this all works in practice, let's meet our first case study, our protagonist, King Agabodi I. Now, this guy reigned way back, more than 1,000 years after the Buddha, and the old texts, they basically paint him as the poster child for what a meritorious king should be.
And you know, the Chronicles don't just give you a laundry list of his achievements. They get poetic. They use these incredible, powerful metaphors to describe his character. And look, these weren't just empty compliments. When they compared him to the sun, or the mythical Mount Meru, or the deep ocean, what they were really saying was that his rule was majestic, that it was totally unshakable, and that it gave life to the kingdom.
So what was the payoff for being this great, virtuous guy? How about 34 years? That's right, 34 years of a stable, prosperous, and maybe most importantly, peaceful reign. We're talking no major rebellions, no foreign invasions. It was, for all intents and purposes, a true golden age. So, the big question is, how did he actually do it? I mean, how do you take this abstract idea of merit and turn it into real, tangible prosperity for your people? Well, his reign gives us a pretty clear blueprint for what this kind of pious rule looks like in the real world. It basically came down to 3 core pillars. Pillar number 1, nurture the land. Make sure your people can actually thrive. Pillar 2, support the faith, which was seen as the spiritual bedrock of the whole kingdom. And finally, number 3, inspire everyone else to be virtuous, just by leading by example. So let's talk about that first pillar, nurturing the land. In Sri Lanka, that meant one thing above all else: water. So what did King Agabodi do? He launched these massive infrastructure projects, building new reservoirs, they call them tanks, and fixing up the old ones. And you gotta understand, these were not vanity projects. This was a direct way to earn merit because it guaranteed food on the table and prosperity for generations. He even planted a coconut grove that went on for almost 24 miles. Just think about that, a sustainable resource for the whole kingdom. Okay, on to pillar 2, supporting the faith. And what's just mind-blowing here is the sheer scale of his patronage. I mean, he didn't just build a few temples. He created entire ecosystems to support them, giving them land and fields so they could be totally self-sufficient. He fixed up legendary places like the Loha Basada, and get this, in one incredible act of generosity, he organized an almsgiving for 36,000 monks. Can you even imagine? It just goes to show, the spiritual health of the kingdom was every bit as important as its physical well-being.
And that brings us to the third pillar, which is all about inspiration. The Chronicles literally say the king's piety was contagious. Think about that. When his people saw him, their leader, dedicating all his power to good works, they couldn't help but join in. Everyone from the highest court ministers right down to the average person on the street. It created this powerful, virtuous cycle, a ripple effect of merit that led to a peace so deep and stable that arts and literature had the space to just flourish.
But of course, no reign is ever perfect, right? No matter how pious the king. A good, meritorious king wasn't just a builder. He also had to be a protector. He had to guard the kingdom against threats. And those threats could be ideological, just as much as they were physical.
And during this golden age, the kingdom faced two really different kinds of crises. The first was a threat from within, a challenge to the purity of the faith itself. There was this heretical doctrine that was starting to get popular. The second was a straight-up disaster. Sudden, catastrophic. One of the oldest, most sacred monuments in the entire country just collapsed.
So, Agabodi I tackled that first threat head-on, no messing around. He brought in this brilliant scholar monk from India named Jyotipala. And Jyotipala publicly debated and just systematically dismantled the heretical teachings. The king then threw his full royal authority behind the orthodox view, basically stamping out the heresy for good. It was a huge move that really solidified his role as the protector of the faith.
Now that second crisis, that was even more dramatic. It actually happened years later, and it was up to his successor, who funnily enough was also named Agabodi, to deal with it. And this wasn't just about testing a king's leadership. Oh no, this was a test of the entire nation's faith. And this whole story is just a brilliant example of the kingdom's resilience. So it all starts when the Thuparama Stupa, this sacred building that was almost 1,000 years old, just crumbles. The king's first move? Protection. He rushes in to secure the precious Buddha relic that was kept inside. Smart. But then the rebuilding work kind of stalls. And that's when a divine warning supposedly comes through. Deities appear in his dream telling him, hey, get this done. So, taking that as a massive sign, the king rallies the entire nation. They rebuild the stupa even bigger and better than before, and the whole kingdom comes together for this huge festival to put the relic back. It was this incredible moment where they took a total disaster and turned it into a powerful statement about their shared faith.
So when you look at the reigns of both of these kings, what's the big takeaway? Well, together, their actions give us this lasting blueprint for a totally different way of thinking about leadership.
And the blueprint is pretty simple, but it's also really profound. First off, power isn't a right, it's a responsibility that you earn through merit. A leader's main job is compassion, plain and simple, taking care of the people. And all that stuff about supporting the faith, that's not some side project, it's the very source of the kingdom's stability. At the end of the day, a leader's own goodness inspires the whole society, tying the kingdom's physical health directly to its spiritual health.
You see, for these kings, greatness wasn't about how much land they conquered or how big their army was. Not at all. It was measured by what they created, the reservoirs they built, the monasteries they supported, the incredible peace they fostered. Their power wasn't defined by destruction, but by creation. A simple but powerful idea.
And that kind of leaves us with one last question to think about, doesn't it? In any time period, our own included, what's the real measure of a leader's greatness? Is it the power they grab for themselves, or is it the prosperity and well-being they create for everyone else?